Good evening, everybody, and welcome to SCA Coaches Corner. Once again, we're excited to be here, and tonight we've got a different show for you. Um, we want to introduce you first to our coaches. We've got Duke Brannos is here with us, Sir Sadb, Sir Bari, Sir Sivrid, and Sir Guillaume, who we're welcoming to our production staff tonight, as well as myself, Viscount Tristan. Um, the theme of our show tonight is a little bit different. Rather than talking specifically about a topic on fighting, we're going to kind of open the curtain a bit and invite you to kind of take part in the future of Coach's Corner. When we started this project back in initially, I contacted Sean and Brannos back in December, I think, of 2019, back when the world was slightly normal. We were kind of talking about this idea, and we got on a conference call, and we just had such a great time talking about fighting, about training, how to help people train, learn to train and teach and share their knowledge and become better fighters. And we kind of stewed on a little bit. We'd have a conference call here and there, and every time we just had the best time talking with each other, like we would be sitting around a fire at an event, talking stick and discussing concepts about fighting and all kinds of those things. And that is what grew into the SCA Coaches Corner. And as you probably know and have seen so many of our episodes, we had to plan those out, figure out what topics we thought people would be interested in, what students and people have come to us and asked, tell me about this, tell me about the mindset of fighting, competition, things like that. And we've planned those out, and occasionally we've asked for input, but now we really want to open things up and include you, our listeners, in the future of where we're going. Also, the world has changed. Events have kicked back up. We're no longer in lockdowns with everybody bored at home, not being able to do anything. We are running into people have schedules. There's a lot more activities to cover. And we're delighted that Coach's Corner has gone to live events, like Penzic has done remote remote telecasts, and we've aired our classes live from events. We're getting more and more demand, and we could kind of use some help. So tonight's show is going to be a discussion about moving forward, how we can do it, how you might be able to get involved and help us produce shows, help us be the technical support, help run the classes, set up the live transmissions or do recordings, help plan out episodes, all kinds of these things. And we really like these discussions because they are like brainstorming sessions. We want to go over ideas, things that even we haven't thought about. The more minds we put into this, the more ideas we collect, the better that SCA Coaches Corner can be. So welcome everybody tonight. That's kind of the platform we're going to start on. And, I guess I would like to say thank you for all the people that have helped us get this far. I never envisioned we would go as far as we have. It is beyond remarkable that we've had so much activity that has just online that has affected events, fighting practices across the known world. It has affected fighters' development. We still get comments from many, many people about how, they've helped. The content we provided has helped them get over plateaus, has helped change the atmosphere in their fighting practices, has helped change how they view fighting, and that they have a great time with it where they were struggling before. Many, many things that we're very thankful for. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for everybody here that's here tonight. Who would like to kick off? Brannos, maybe you could take it from there.
Sure, I could totally do it. I think you covered a lot, and there's a little bit of history there, and we've gotten a few questions about that mystery tale. Anyways, we got a few questions about how we pick coaches, everything from there. I really consider a lot of people that actually just participate on the coaching discussion forum that's or page that's on Facebook as coaches. I mean, they're all giving different input, and I think just like at a practice where two people may say the same thing a little differently, and one communicates it better in a way the person's communication style is. helps them more than the other. It's the same content, but in this case, the good part is we have a lot of different people. Right now, one of my concerns for our channel is that we have a lot of people that are out of my group here in Detroit, because I know them. I know they've been wonderful and offered to help and help me kind of keep up and do stuff. But we're always trying to pull people outside the same thinking cycle that we have here. So, it's been nice to get people like Sir Bari on and, Bess and many of the other people that we have, because they take it in a different way. Where we may use a lot of more footwork, they use a lot more sword and essentially pell work. And, and they're all legit. And I think they're all pieces of making what ends up being your fight. And I think that's super important. And I think that's, as far as picking coaches, that's why we left that discussion area up, because it's not just us, it's everyone. And we try to bring people in. It's a little bit hard. Even for me, I'm still trying to figure out a lot of the online stuff like here. But, it's sometimes hard to make sure that you have the people that can come in and kind of give a good show for people, answer the questions they need to. We've brought in people and they've worked for a period of time, jobs changed, roles in the SCA changed, and they fell off. And they'll still come back from time to time, but it's a constantly changing thing. And I kind of like it that way in some ways. But just like anything else, you have to have a core group of people that hopefully will keep it going. And there's a lot of work to that. And I think one thing we want to discuss is, what kind of where we started. And I think, Tristan covered a bit of that, but, we started with way back in the day, there was nothing else we could do. So we really kind of started with a lot of talk around the mental game of the sport, drills you could do at home. We have a library of video from YouTube that was created. We'll show that later. We started having coaches meetings where like, hey, what else do we want to discuss? Well, there was lots of stuff to discuss, and we covered a lot of this over the last 4 years. We did everything from history of a history of kingdoms to interviews with dukes and other people. So we tried to cover a lot of bases, but book review. But we're also expanding. We've added, we started adding online, or we started adding seminars. We added virtual fight practice that was started a little bit after, just because we offered anybody a chance to come and just do fight practice live on Sundays with us. But lately we're taking that to bigger events. Before, at the larger events, we did little, just a talk about the event and had people talk a little bit. And it's actually, I really enjoyed those. Those are really hard to produce, to get the time, to get the people. So that's what we're going to ask probably, other people who have done maybe this for other groups or themselves in the SCA for some advice. This year we went one step above and did classes at Penzic, and we're hoping to be able to do that more, but that was a little bit more work than I even thought it was going to be. There was a lot of pre-work, but equipment became a real issue, trying to set those up all the time, I think. And that's where we started learning that we do have to get better. And then on that note as well, other costs for us are starting to increase, and we're trying to really never want to charge for anything, obviously. But we do have to, we're probably $400 or $500 a year to show between all the coaches. So we're looking for options to do a little bit of fundraising and, not try to reach into people's pockets so much, and try to find out fun ways to do it that people wouldn't mind. And this goes back to my old way of nobody pays for anything. And maybe that's a bygone era that I just need to let go of. But it's a conversation I think we need to have. So anybody else? How about, anybody else recognize stuff that we've been doing that we might want to talk about on tonight's show. If anybody has comments on, or questions on, the effort put into the show, I can definitely give you a background of effort. It's there's lots of stuff that goes into creating a show. There's a lot of background. I do a lot of research on the show topics. We have to we put the show together the week of the week prior to the show to try to make sure that all our guests are coming in. They all have access. That the coaches communicate with, or the host communicates with them, so they know times, how it works, and then we have to plan the show around a lot of people's activities. So there's a lot of stuff there, and if nobody has anything else, I'd say, Tristan, what do you think about just jumping in? Probably, what first topic would you like to maybe cover?
Tris, you're still muted.
Oh. And we do have a couple of comments, so I think we probably might want to take a look at some of those. Ooh, lots of comments. Here we go.
Ooh. So I think there are a couple of comments in there. One of which was this: was there a question? There's a question about, is there a directory of every episode? And Siv, I think you actually have the answer to that question. Yeah. And so I'll let Siv actually talk about that.
So this is one of those things where it started great and kind of fell off in the middle somewhere, and we would like to make it better again. Let me see if I can actually share the window. Hold on. Here we go. So if we look here, we can actually see we do have this very handy dandy list of all of the episodes that we have ever done. And I will admit, I just now finished adding the last, 8 months to a year worth to the bottom here.
Is that a different list? So, and I apologize, but is that a different list? That I thought that was fed off of the list that we have in the lounge.
It was originally, and the reason I had to copy in is because at some point, whatever the formula I was using in here to sort of automatically grab the data disappeared. I don't know if somebody copy pasted and left it or what the deal was, but I can try and fix that. But there's some forgotten links that live in the featured posts section of the discussion group here. My screen can catch up. If you go to the featured posts, we have the training library, and then there's the important links post that includes our old indoor drills list and a link to this episode list, which this is what'll pop up. And admittedly, it's not very pretty. The formatting is plain, but it is here, and you can very easily, Control F search, and it's got a link to the YouTube for every single one of them, except for the one that we're still doing right now at the very bottom. There's no link for today yet. But I can, if I go back and fix the formula, then this will continue to automatically update, because what it's secretly pulling from is our master sheet over here that has a lot of color coding based on, what stage of planning we are in, and it's got extra, the Zoom link or the StreamYard link for us to use to get in here and do things. And so, and our coaches meetings where we do this, but without an audience. So it was secretly, it had a formula that was just automatically pulling data from here. And at some point that got broken. So I will need to fix that. For the time being, I just copy pasted the data in here, so it's there. And I will work on the side on getting that formula fixed, so it will continue to auto update.
Okay. Well, and I apologize to the audience because I keep the other one updated. I thought that formula was still working, so I didn't even realize the other one
thought it was too.
Updated. Okay.
So this is a victim of, again, it was great when we started it up, and it was mid-pandemic. I was working from home. There was nothing else to do in the evenings. There was no events. It was really easy to stay on top of maintenance. And as life has gotten busier and busier over time since then, I have not come back and checked on things like that formula and making sure the sheet was still auto-updating. So that's something I need to get back on top of. But also, this is a place where we can say, hey, if there's someone out there that knows a better way to structure all this, or is really good at Google Sheets and is willing to, has the free time to stay on top of it a little better, like, we can use help.
That's for sure. So
yeah, so that's a great resource, and so that's and I think I go back and point out that that's all in the Coach's Corner discussion. And I think Sadb ran over that really quickly, but there's also a link to the YouTube channel, but there's also a link to the drills list in there, and there's also that link to the training library, all of which are really exceptional resources. The training library has some, if I remember last time I looked at it, it was over 600 different videos that are linked, all about SCA training. And so that you can make a copy of it. When you follow the link there, you make a copy, your own personal copy. And it has sorted by topic. You can actually sort by weapons form. You can sort by who taught it, who the coach was. So if you want to find all of the videos from Duke Mark Arundel, for instance, or Duke Eichbrander, you can put all of those in there, and you say, okay, I really want to learn from whoever it happens to be. You can follow, or if you just want to say, I want everyone's opinions about how you'd hit someone in the leg, or how you use a hand and a half sword. You can sort it that way. And I'm looking down here.
Talking about the training
well
library?
over 600 videos.
Yeah, are you want to share that on screen?
I can show that on screen here. Let me do that really quickly.
Because that is another resource, much like the other, that was made and maintained for a while when there wasn't as much going on, and then I have not really kept up with the maintenance on it, so it hasn't been updated in quite a while, and we would really like to do that, but it is a surprising amount of labor to enter all of the things, and especially trying to put in, the little descriptions and keywords and things, and sorting it out to make it sortable by weapons form, coach. It's a lot of data entry. So if someone is willing to volunteer to help with that, or knows a better way to do this than via Google Sheets references, like, I don't know how to build an actual database. But if someone else does and wants to volunteer, like...
So there's been a number of comments that I think are all going to touch on a similar subject, where people are asking about where they can find information for people that don't use Facebook, and there's more and more people that are interested but don't use Facebook and want to be able to have a place to go to. Someone brought up Discord as an option, and I know that there's probably as many people that dislike Discord as they do dislike Facebook. And so is there some other approach that we could maybe take to a centralized location for this stuff, where being able to store this in a database format might work better than having it attached to Facebook like we do now?
So realistically, there is only one method. I mean, before all of this, we had, we had every other, every number of years, the way we communicate changes based on how things work. The one thing that always has stayed is web pages. So if it's unfortunately, you lose too much history if you jump from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and you do lose some people. Right now, we use mostly YouTube, which also has a communication medium on it, but we only use it for video mostly. The Facebook, as much as it, yes, there's lots of younger people not using it, and that becomes an issue. Unfortunately, going to Discord, or and I've heard of other people on many other things, everything from Twitter to Instagram to all of those, just becomes very, very difficult. We can broadcast to those spaces, but to set up the discussions that we had become very, very hard. So
I think MySpace is pretty affordable right now. Want to try MySpace?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, and I think one of the things about what the tools that Sive developed there, where they are on Google Docs, and so, but the problem right now, I think that running into is the link to them is on Facebook. So part of it that is being able to share that potentially over through the YouTube account, potentially through other methods. And I think the Discord comment is, I know that, for instance, I know a lot of people who only have Facebook because of the SCA, and they also really only interact with the SCA on Discord when they have a choice. So I think that's a discussion we should probably have is, what other real options are there? I know Barry's done a bunch of TikTok stuff, and he's done a bunch of Reels type things. But I think that's another discussion that as a group we should have, is that we like this long format 90-minute show, but that may not be the best way for people to interact.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. There's a lot of people that 15 minutes is what they want to hear, but I think same note, 15 minutes is a good way to get an introduction to something, but to actually get a deep dive into it becomes difficult. But I really liked what Bari was doing, to tell you the truth, and he got a lot of run on it. But Bari, how much work was that? You took a lot of videos. You asked to use videos and cut stuff up and put little tiny clips together. Tell us about the work that took.
Everything's a lot of work. Okay, so I guess a little bit of background on that. I actually don't use TikTok at all, but I did create like a YouTube playlist, and I was just pretty much finding like short videos. So trying to keep everything down to like little sort of bite-sized content. But yeah, it's usually a lot of work just to kind of keeping things short is a lot more work than keeping things long. Because keeping things long, you just babble and then eventually you're done. But like trying to like really edit it down and make it short, it does take some work. One of the things that I want to bring to this group that I'd like to do, I can do it. I just need a little bit of help finding the content. Is kind of like you'll see podcasts out there, and I don't want to name any because people have their pet favorites and things that they hate. But there's like a bunch of content like podcasts out there, and you'll see like these little 30 to 90 second clips of the podcast. And that itself isn't going to get a whole lot of content to the audience, but it's basically used as like a marketing tool. So I thought it'd be really cool if we could take some of our past episodes, if we could just find these like little 30 to 90 second snips. I mean, the last 90 seconds here could be one, right? And it goes into a Facebook reel, goes into YouTube shorts. And then when people are just sitting there in line at Chipotle scrolling through stuff, that like this is stuff that starts to come up, and then if they like it, then it starts to go on their algorithm. It's just like a little bit of way to sort of expand the audience.
So yeah, I'm gonna go into the comments here and bring up some of the comments. There's been a lot of comments flying by, and I thought maybe we could bring some up and start addressing some of the points that people are making.
I think it's a great idea.
So I'm going to start with a bit of a wall of text here from Antigone. But I think it's a lot of good points here, so I think it's a really good place to start.
I agree. So diversifying coaches on episodes have, directory of all episodes that easy searchable. So we did the directory, and it actually has the coaches on that directory. We showed that one already. We probably could add a little bit more like meta tag and stuff like that to those things if we had more experience on how to do that kind of thing, so it's easier to search.
I still want to attempt using, I don't know where my camera went off.
Get your camera's off. There you go.
I still want to attempt using ChatGPT or one of those and see if we can use it to make the labor on that a little easier, and just be like, here's the YouTube link, give me a list of keywords, and be able to just copy paste that in to make it a little more easily searchable, or have it spit out a synopsis for us or that kind of thing. I haven't tried it yet.
I did try it, and what you need to do, it doesn't work. It actually won't take a YouTube link. If you generate the transcript from YouTube, which YouTube will do, it will then ingest the transcript. Okay. But it won't take a direct link. So that's one thing we started looking at. and didn't get their tell yet.
But there may be other people that have done this kind of thing. So again, we'd love to hear other people's stuff, especially if you're really good at it and you just want to do a project and say, hey, I can't be part of an ongoing production that does take a bit of time, but you would like to do a project and do something like this, we would be happy to talk about that. So I think we have some Sunday, like we did Sunday virtual fight practices for a long time. And there's some real deep content in those. The beginning 40 minutes, 45 minutes was mostly ladder work and things. But then after that, we dove into different striking, different ladder work, different rotational movements, lots of different movement stuff, including a lot of talk about mental stuff for the next 45 minutes. So we did a lot of different drills in there, but nobody goes back and looks at them. But there's the second 45 minutes is actually really good content that is.
And I think just getting back to Antigone's comment, well, it's still here on the screen.
Yes.
And the other comment, which was have a suggestion email box or Facebook group. I think we have said in the past that it'd be great if you want to make a comment to the discussion group, but I think it's also a valid point that the Facebook group is not always accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
Having an email group is probably a good idea. Or an email.
I think it's a great idea. Let me put it down. I'm trying to write down some ideas.
We do have an email that we could share,
but we don't advertise it.
Right. So we could actually put that out there, or we could, because obviously I work in Google stuff. We could make a Google form that is the suggestion box, and it would just sort of accumulate them all for us. That is a thing we could do.
And she has another comment in here. Have episodes post well in advance, along with who's going to be on them. That one is really good, and I'm going to tell you that isn't just because sometimes those shows fall apart. That is just getting the time to actually put those shows. Because we internally have a site called our Coaches Lounge, and we talk in our Coaches Lounge, and we build our show from that Coaches Lounge episode, just where our comments go and try to talk to people. We used to do a much better job getting stuff out at least a week before. I'm not sure, it's even this one I updated, we passed on it last week because it just couldn't come together. And then I updated a lot of stuff for this week just today. And that's ridiculous. That's on me. I should spend more time, but there's a lot of times I still have to update pictures from that a bunch of graphics on the YouTube page and a bunch of other things. So there's just a lot of work going on, but I will put that down not only as a suggestion, but really something we have to do better.
I'd like to address that too, and let listeners know that there were times when after we launched the show, and we had so many ideas. We had like a list of 40 or 50. It seemed like episode ideas. We just jotted them down and said, okay, let's kind of put these in order of how we want to do them. And we had a pretty good roadmap we at least knew what we were doing a fair amount ahead of time. And then as we started getting through them, we would have brainstorming sessions where we would say, okay, what's going to be the next 2 months or 3 months worth of episodes and topics that we would cover. And then as the lockdowns restrictions started lifting, and people were going back to work, going back to practices, going back to normal lives, we started getting closer and closer to showtime of what are we going to do this Wednesday for a show. And I don't see it as blaming anybody. It's just real life came back. And this kind of what we've been talking about, the content we've produced, by the way, when I look at people that are delivering content professionally, we exceed the amount of content by a factor that most do with things like paid courses or curriculums, things like that. We've got a lot of content that we've gone through. So it is even more challenging to keep up with that, in addition to having people like there was also the talk about, diversifying coaches or bringing in other different coaches. And but we've also realized that people get the real life attack and they want to participate, but they say, hey, listen, I just don't have the time. I can't do it. Or, it's just too much. I need to back off for a while. So we have coaches kind of come and go as their schedules dictate. which means that we don't really have a choice of who our coaches are as much as we are subjected to the schedules of and the interests that people have for wanting to participate in the show. So I would put this out as a call. If you've watched or listened to this show and you would like to have a topic or you'd like to participate as a coach, let us know. We would love to have people come in and participate as coaches. I know we've really tried to branch out into having coaches from the rapier community and from other parallel fighting communities. And we've tried and had a little bit of success, but not nearly the success we want to, and to diversify and having people from different fighting communities come in and share their coaching experience and learning experience. So it's not because we're limited in our vision. We're just limited in the resources that we have available to us. If that makes sense.
No, and that's 100%. And also, we want to make sure that the folks that are coming on, people want to listen to them, and they want to not, that we do find, like in normal SCA, people regurgitating the same thing that they know over and over and over again. And I'm sure I do it. I'm sure all of us do it some. But we want to make a show that's a little entertaining and drawing people's, asking questions. Bess does a wonderful job on this. Tristan does a nice job on this. We want to make sure that the people coming to the show, are entertaining enough to be on the show. So there's a little bit of that. So, you'll usually find that our coaches that are here more often are the people that we sometimes bring them in as producers, and then they start getting the feel of it. And then we ask them to run their own shows. Bari's still dying on running his own show, and the guy does more shows than we do. So, it's, but there is some pressure around that. And we want to make sure that we have good shows for you and good people doing it. Another point, I'm just going to post up something. I posted it as a reply to Nate, but I'm going to post it up here. And I'm not done actually with Antigones, because Sven also brought it up, and I think it's a good thing. I just posted, and we got a lot more, and I don't want to ignore people's comments. It's just right now it's getting hard to carry on here. This is a lifetime of SCA Coaches Corner YouTube. We have about 52,000 views. And again, this is lifetime. I'm just cut and paste here. Watch time is about 15,000 hours of watch time. And we have, and I cut it off because he only allowed to post up so much in this, that looks like in this thing. 10,000, there we go. Just over 1,000 viewers. So, by the way, we are at about, I think we're 3,000. If I go back, and I'll let you know, I think if we were trying to make any money off of YouTube, it's very difficult nowadays to make money. We are, just so everybody knows, we need 4,000 watch hours in a year, and we only have 3,000 watch hours. So to give you a feel, we're not monetary, we're not making anything on our YouTube videos or anything else. So otherwise, maybe we wouldn't have to worry about a little bit of money raising, because the money raising falls right into the last comment. And Sven brought up this comment as well later on, and that is better mics and cameras to do better shows.
I wanted to touch on that too, because I remember watching the live. I guess you guys people were sitting around talking at Penzic, and that episode had somebody on camera. So the camera was actually moving. It wasn't just a camera on a tripod sitting next to a fire. It was actually filmed. And although I wouldn't say it was Hollywood caliber or anything like that, but just having a cameraman makes a huge difference in the feel of a video. And the same thing goes through with audio, but now you're adding in layers of technical work that needs to be done. It needs to be done pretty well. And we just haven't gotten to that point yet. And I think we need to. It would be great to, but it would require some volunteers to come up, because, and I'm going to plug Brannos for this one, because I know he won't mention it. he got so overwhelmed by trying to produce those shows at Penzic amidst I'm sure all of his other duties, which he's already normally busy enough with. But what we're talking about with live shows from events, to do them even reasonably well takes quite a bit. And I applaud him for taking that on, between setting up, how do you get live feed? How do you get your cameras and stuff set up? How do you get your audio set up? And that's not even with camera people. If you add camera people in there and, people to do wireless mics and things like that, I mean, you're adding a lot of workload. So we would love to have people who come maybe as like an intern, or people that are film students, or people that have experience or want experience with doing that. We could certainly use those people be able to do those types of things. Help us with putting a little bit more polish on our productions, especially from live classes and whatnot, or at events, or even at local practices would be great.
But
I found that video production is definitely a rabbit hole that when you go down, it can be a Pandora's box of the amount of work just goes exponentially greater the more that you want it to look nice and sound nice and come across well.
I want to make a comment specifically about Penzic classes that we were doing in the microphone situation. Mm-hmm. A lot of the problem was that those we are doing from our phones, and most of what we do is from the computer. So we were trying to attach a Bluetooth headset that had a microphone on it that could stay with the coach. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to do it, and we just ran out of time to figure it out as we ran into silly glitches. Like, it connects to the phone just fine, and it uses that headphone and microphone for calls and other things on the phone. But then when you go live on Facebook apparently just ignores it. And we were like, oh, because it was using the microphone from the Bluetooth headset. And then we were like, cool, so forget Facebook, will try and do it through StreamYard. But then StreamYard on the phone was having some sort of weird permissions issue, and it kept, freaking out and telling us that, your browser doesn't have permission to use your camera and your microphone. And no matter how many different ways we tried to override that and give it permissions via, the app settings and this, that, and the other, we could not figure it out. And so, again,
and that's how it goes. And with all the other stuff you got going on to add that to it, it's just a monster.
We need some time to play with stuff and figure it out. Or, again, if someone out there is like, I've totally done this, I know how to do it, please, we need you. Tell us.
So Sadb, I was wondering about that problem.
Promise.
I was wondering about that problem with connecting the wireless to the phone and having Facebook be able to identify it. And I was wondering if maybe we were to try and run off of a laptop instead of a phone for some of the stuff. Maybe we could solve some of those problems. But I think certainly if we know people, anybody that can give us advice on that has done this type of stuff before, absolutely is a good opportunity for that. But we can maybe take that away and do some testing with some different options and see if we can figure out how to get that working so that we can do the wireless mics.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, some of the first thing is I've talked to professional audio people. Wireless mics are constantly an issue in every industry.
Oh yeah.
Just to let you know, and I talk to really good media people, and they tend to be, the good ones tend to be expensive. Not that I am against it. If we can find something, I am more than happy to try. Yeah. So the second piece is we also have to be careful of weather. We had some rainy days, and we had some very hot days. So we had talked about GoPros and things. The latest versions of GoPro, in fact, the latest number of versions of GoPro actually shut down because of heat issues all the time. So we've had issues with GoPro and some of the other devices. So
yeah, so just I think it's probably helpful to express. So when we broadcast, or when Coach's Corner was broadcasting from Penzic, that was primarily done on either Brannos's or Sai's phone, and it was just an individual phone. And so we did try to bring in, as they mentioned, the external mics, but a lot of what we're working with is just because of the joy of working at war, where you have to recharge everything, you have to keep everything updated. A lot of that's just a matter of what we're working with right now is, and we did try to work with the GoPro, but I think there's the nature, it's not trivial, or where we're at is not where we need to be. And so that's one of the things we're really looking for discussion is, how do we improve that? And so the other thing is we know a lot of things like GoPros will now have the ability to basically broadcast directly to YouTube and things like that. So it's a question of how do we actually work that, or inside of StreamYard like this, where we can control the environment a little better, and control the audio, control everything else a little better. That might be a way to go. But again, that means someone probably giving up their fighting for the day just to handle the computers for that day.
Yeah, and that became, in fact, I did a lot less fighting this Penzic than I thought I was going to.
Welcome, Antigone.
Yeah. Hey, all
Welcome.
right.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
We can. So I thought we'd bring Antigone out. The good part is we've had a number of episodes with you, and we've had some class time with Her Grace. The best part is she does a lot of other work I know of with her local group and getting that going and communicating with people. So not only did she have a bunch of wonderful questions that we were trying to answer here, but I thought it would be a good way to just bring her on and have her part of the show and talk about some of the other things you've done and issues you've seen trying to do these kinds of things as well.
Yeah. Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Oh, sure can. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. We just didn't do a mic check or anything ahead of time because you just pulled me in. But yeah, by the way, hashtag wall of text by Antigone is a thing. Yeah, so a lot of the things feedback that we get, because you're up mostly in mid-realm in the east and things of that nature, I believe, the core group at least, and then I see more of kind of the southwest area and a little bit of the northwest area, and kind of interact with different circles there that are really into training and teaching and want to grow this sport, because it is a sport. And so Coach's Corner has been kind of a lifeline, especially during COVID. And then as we came out of COVID, it just continued to kind of grow and provide, like you said, amazing content. And so I think it's great that you want to continue pursuing that, and as in fighting, pursue the excellence in the content that you're providing, as well as the outreach. And so that has to be commended. And I know everyone on this show, past, present, and future, will do a lot of work and put in a lot of effort, all just in the name of kind of making this sport better, which is amazing because you all do it for free. Not only free, but you pay your own money to do it. So
I found that out today.
But I think now that we're back kind of post-COVID and now have our feet under us, doing these live shows and doing these live classes, that's kind of the evolution of where people are connecting and kind of finding more value. So for me, like when I was thinking about suggestions to give you, or when I get input and say, oh, we wish Coach's Corner did this or that, is there value added? Really, what are you doing? Is it value added or not? Because if it's not value added, then really you could discontinue doing those things, or maybe that's not something that you need to pursue or put time and effort in. And so I think, like, when we're getting all these suggestions from everyone, which are amazing, that you're asking this and on this platform and kind of doing it live is risky. So kudos to you. I think that's the main question. What's the value added? So for me, that's where I started with my suggestions. And that is, the big value for that content and that I see on the content is being able to get a different voice. So when people are teaching, even coaches on here that I've listened to in person or through your show, they'll say things and it just doesn't sink in. But then I'll have somebody else say the same thing, and it clicks for me or for somebody else, or they explain it in a way that lets me, as kind of when I'm teaching people, allows me to teach it better. And so that's why the diversifying kind of comes into play. It's also really important to get people's experience. And I know that you've been asked, that we've said this a couple of times, but that's because it really is that important. And I know you lose people to life and things of that nature, but I really feel like if if we had some more of that and it was a little more open, it would help us immensely in this pursuit of just learning and knowledge and seeing somebody else that, you know, is there sharing their story. Maybe they're not a duke. Maybe they're not, you know, maybe they've never won a royal list. Maybe they're not even a knight, right? Yet. But maybe they have something that is profound, or they say it in a way that really helps people learn and grow. So that's kind of what we're going at. It's great that you added rapier this year. You added a lot of mobility coaching and other things. You've been talking about mental health and in the sport and things of that nature, which is amazing, reaching out and broadening the community and your ideas for it. So it's just sometimes seeing the same people week after week, or the same one person who represents, in my case, the female fighting community all the time. It does become frustrating because I want to hear other voices. But now that we know that you're open to having more people, maybe those of us who watch and love Coach's Corner can start being like, hey, you'd be great to be on this. Please sign up. Please do it. Because sometimes that's all people need, is somebody inviting them.
Yeah.
So I
One
guess
thing, I thank you very much for your comments. If I could just jump in real quick. You know, I remember, and this is something I don't think anybody who is not in the coaches lounge or whatnot would really get or know, but we've had a number of episodes where we've lined up guests and said, hey, we're really excited to have this. And then they fizzled out and just, it didn't happen through some sort of, you know, work obligation or things. And, you know, some of those episodes, a number of them were starting to branch out into the more, the other areas of fighting that we really want to cover. And we were very bummed when they didn't come to fruition. And so, you know, absolutely, we are 100% open to different perspectives. We'd love to hear from people from all over the known world, whether it's Drachenwald, Locock, you know, West, Antir, East, Trimaris, all that stuff. We're just finding it's harder to get guests now than it was before. And, you know, consider this episode the open invitation. If you are a trainer in that area, or if you have just something interesting that you'd like to bring forward, we'd love to hear it and love to put an episode together for it. You know, it's tougher. And I run another podcast as well on YouTube. And I found it was easier to line up guests a year ago than it was now. Once this January hit, I don't know what happened, but it's harder and harder to coordinate with guests. And I'm just doing a one-on-one. I'm not even getting like 4 or 5 people together. And so, but no, I very much appreciate your perspective on how Coach's Corner has helped and the things you'd love to see from it. And
yeah,
we would love to make it even better.
Go ahead.
So I have sort of trying to build on this weirdly. I have a thought to sort of throw out there. One of the issues we've run into with trying to get some people on as guests, and even some of our like original people that were a big part of this that have sort of fallen off now due to time zone differences. Because again, people on the West Coast trying to be on here for a 5 o'clock show for them is real hard. If there's enough interest from people that are in different time zones, or you're mentioning all around the world in different kingdoms, we could put together episodes where we say, all right, this is a bunch of people from, you know, the West Coast and out that way. So maybe the live broadcast is going to be at 7 p.m. their time. And so for us on the East Coast, maybe it's a little late. Maybe you go to bed and you miss that one and you watch the recording later, but it gives those people an easier chance to do that and actually have some episodes with different people, just by solving the scheduling problem that way. So
that's a good idea.
Yep.
If there's people interested in that, West Coast friends, let us know.
Yeah, and the other piece on that, I really liked your idea, and I'm writing some of these down, and maybe along with suggestion box, we also include a suggestion box about people that you would like to hear from. We can reach out. All they can say is no, or that if you have something and would like to do either, depending on how, you know, it doesn't have to be a giant hour-and-a-half show. It could literally be 15 minutes. We have lots of spots for shorts. So it's like, hey, I got this shot. I really like to show everyone. And we could do a little short, tape it, and do it as a short video and still post it up on on the site. So
Mhm.
we definitely have some other opportunities. Is that the kind of thing you were thinking of, Antigone?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like on that theme in nature, I personally prefer quality content over massive amounts of content.
Right.
So that means like if it makes more sense for Coach's Corner Live to maybe be only once a month, and that's, you know, so that you can get everybody there and that's the content and you have the show ready, then you know that's what you guys should do. And then if it makes sense to like have people pre-record, like was what we were kind of talking about in the chat, that makes a lot of sense as well. So I think the adding flexibility and not being rigid in like how you have to do things is going to help you kind of capture that content that you want and the people you want a little bit better. So yeah, that's ideally it.
And I think both the points that you brought up kind of feed into what we talked about earlier with YouTube engagement, in that higher quality content, as far as production quality goes, is going to have better engagement than some of the microphone issues that we've had with some of the live recordings. And the pre-recorded content and shorter form content is also going to help engagement, because people won't necessarily want to sit down and watch a 90-minute episode, but they'll sit down and watch a 10-minute, 15-minute video and be able to pick up something from that. So there's some other things that we can look at for being able to expand the reach and expand the content.
Hey,
And so I guess it's a question, and I'd love to. Hey Barry, can you 1 second? I'm gonna go back to you because I actually want to get some input from you, because you already do this, and the short content stuff, because I really do want to cover it. Just a real quick question to the audience out there. Can you go ahead and just post up, do you or don't you like the lengths of the show? Because, you know, there are some shows that's just kind of fun to dribble on, like books, you know, like our book reviews and stuff. Sometimes those are good interviews. But tell us how long you think a show would be good for, you know, and also tell us what types of different shows if you want. So if you're like, hey, I need a half hour for a drill or 15 minutes. But if you're interviewing somebody, an hour is great. If you're doing a deep dive on the mental piece of and have more than one, you know, a bunch of coaches covering it, then an hour and a half fits. Go ahead and tell us those things, because I think that would help us try to build better content for you. I like these suggestions, by the way. All you, Barry.
All right, yeah. So I was going to say on that note, first of all, I do like the long format. I've talked about this before, about how as we got into what maybe we'll call this the digital age or the social media age, whatever it is, I noticed two things that really jumped up was these long form podcasts, you know, but also the short TikTok videos. Like they both jumped out as sort of, you know, separated themselves from what we're used to, like the sort of standard. Everything was either a half hour or an hour or 2 hour long movie or whatever it was. And so I've seen value in both. I will say two things is that when I first started watching Coach's Corner, I personally felt like a lot of the episodes were kind of long. And I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not criticizing it, but I remember you had one episode that was a half hour, and it was like you had three coaches, and each one there was like a specific topic, and each one had their like 8 minutes to cover that topic, and then that was the whole episode. I remember sharing that around, saying like, "This is the best episode," because they got right to the point, and they each said it was like, "What are your top 5 things to like get ready for a tournament or something like that?" And that was the whole episode. And I think there might be room for more stuff like that. And the other thing I want to say is I've had friends. I was like, "Hey, you gonna watch the Coach's Corner episode?" You know, blah blah blah, and they go, "Oh, if it wasn't so long," because some people, they either don't have an hour and a half to kill, or they haven't figured out how to kill an hour and a half. Like a lot of times I'll listen to them when I drive to events, or I'll, you know, if it's a night where I'm not really that vested in the topic, but I've got a free evening, I'll put on Board Game Arena and play Carcassonne while listening to Coach's Corner, like on the side, and kind of like, you know, do a little double duty. So yeah, it does sound like there's at least you know, opportunity there for some, like I said, for some different concepts, different ideas, you know, different length shows. Oh, and actually going back to another point about the diversity of guests and coaches and stuff like that. I just want to throw this out there. It's funny because I've talked to enough people that get confused about why is this person a coach and how come that person's not a coach, and how do people become coaches anyway? And I have to explain to them, it's not an order. like we don't vote on the next most qualified person in the SCA. There's like a little bit of it's not a coincidence that a lot of Brannos' neighbors are coaches on the corner.
Because he sees
and I don't know how
the
he
person
found me.
who's like, hey, we're doing a thing. You should help. Please help.
Yeah.
It's harder for them to back away out of the job is the key.
Yeah.
Because then I just beat them at fight practice.
Yeah. And myself kind of getting involved, and probably the same way with Antigone. It's like with myself, I just kind of reached out as like, hey, I'd love to jump on and do an episode. They tried me out. I guess I did okay, well enough, and then I have sort of other YouTube content, and eventually I became a more regular guest, and then I guess Brannos lost enough friends and needed more people to hang out with him, so I was asked to come on. So.
Actually, I tell you why I brought you on, Barry, and this is a good, this is the same reason why I actually asked Her Grace to come on, is because you're both doing really good stuff for the SCA, and I'm hoping some of that bleeds over into the channel where we can all do it together and make this channel better.
Trying to.
Right. So I mean, you do like all your short videos. At some point, I want more help from you on YouTube page, and even just putting some of your shorts, tagging all your shorts like Barry Shorts, and like not shorts, but very short videos.
I got a pair on right now.
We are, very short. I don't want to see your 1970 shorts, though. So
nobody wants to see that. You see my long, skinny legs, right?
Yeah. But like I'd love to get those on our channel because I think people enjoy them, and if they have one channel to go to kind of pull all that stuff together, it's easier for them to go to a channel and do that. And then and I don't care how it gets there, but those are the kinds of things I was, that I'm hoping to get even more. You already added a lot of stuff, and I'm hoping to get even more from you in the future. So, and I just warned Her Grace what I'm hoping that I'm going to get out of her. So,
well, so yeah, I've definitely found myself during I've had an injury, come to find out, misdiagnosed, but has been correctly diagnosed now. And so now that we have it correctly diagnosed, it's improving. But because of that downtime and injury, I actually was able to focus on how can I give back to my local community, which strangely enough, that has also spilled over into giving back to the society in general and other groups, just based off of we came up with this cool stuff and did it. It's really awesome. And people are like, let's try that. And they've had success with it, funny enough. So I think just being able to have kind of the agency, which I feel like I've gotten from this show and from coaches on this show telling me, hey, you can do this thing. You should try it. We think, your idea is great, has helped me immensely. And I know there's other people out there that really struggle with, they don't know, can they do that? Like it's kind of imposter syndrome almost, like I don't think I'm good enough, or I don't have the title or the skill set, I don't have Duke next to my name. So I shouldn't be doing any of this stuff, or maybe I'm not qualified. When the reality is they have great ideas and their involvement is everything, and they could change a lot just by being involved. So I think, being willing to take new people on or listen to ideas and know that you're open to it. Because I think, at least for me, and I'm kind of friends with some of the people on here, more so some than others, but I didn't even know that you would take new coaches, to be quite honest. I didn't know that some of these things, you needed help with, because I never saw that. It was never really mentioned publicly, I guess. And so I think if you could list, here's the skill sets and projects and things that we need help with, and here's what we're looking for, and make that more public, then the rest of us who maybe aren't like, that know what you need might be able to find those people and encourage them to apply or to make connections.
Nope. I just added that we fundamentally have to create a WANA and list the job openings, i.e. list the things that we're probably looking for. I think that's a very big one. I will say at the beginning, we were probably, obviously we were just starting, so we were very careful around coaches and the people that were joining. But I think over time, I tell you, where I see some great coaching, and I've talked to a number of these people, sometimes in video chats with them, are all of the comments that people give on the Facebook page, because some of the comments are looking like dead on. They nailed it, right? And we just want to make sure that they'll be able to do those things. But I think adding people, being able to add some short stuff with people, gives them a chance to give it a try, see if they like it, see if we like what they do.
I think it's good to understand that this group that's here and has been presenting stuff kind of evolved organically and without thinking about actively, intentionally. I mean, intentionally, we early on reached out to a lot of people, but then it kind of fell into, okay, who's available tonight? And I think then we need to go back to intentionally expanding that. And sometimes that intentionality is just difficult, and we admit that, but then it still needs to be done. So thank you I really appreciate you raising that point and reminding of us that. And I think that's also part of the episode, is that, okay, we're finally we're realizing, oh yeah, we need this help, and we have a bunch of friends. Why don't we ask them?
Yeah, and I think that's, and we do have a bunch of friends. I mean, the best part is we pulled people in for classes. And I think what's going to happen is, if we do continue the seminars / classes at big events, first there's a lot of work into that. We have to talk to the folks at the event, make sure they're okay with picking finding a little space that we can do stuff in. And then we have to make sure people can get to those events. Those are, again, those are pretty far away. But the good part is we would have to find those people that are going, or that live in that area, that could do those classes and what they do well. And but somebody would have to organize those. So there's a lot of work into that. I can't say I'd really like to. Ultimately, that's educating the society, and that's why I call them a seminar, is because martial arts offers seminars that travel and go to places. And, I've been travel teaching for a long time. The travel teaching at events like that is much harder, only because you have to go for a period of days. It's over a period of days. You have to train multiple instructors. Tristan, I'm sure you understand, you've been to many martial arts seminars, and there's a lot of work in them, right?
Very, very much so. A lot of work, a lot of advanced planning. It's the logistics are significant, and when you add video, and you just exponentially increase it.
So I want to go back to there was the comment about early on about bringing this to more large events. Again, back to the same, continuing with what you're talking about. So how do we go about pulling people in? Like, I think Antigone was saying something about, okay, Gulf Wars, they're going to be down there, obviously, and other people will be, and then, or Great Western or someplace like that. How do we go about saying, okay, if you want to do something there, we're not going to be there necessarily, but that doesn't mean we can't bring other coaches in who do want to be there and leverage. They can leverage our platform, or we can make use of we can cooperate and make that a broader impact than just something at that event. And so, are there ways we can really? I mean, I think Sadb's talking about working on a form right now, but there's also how for events and ideas. But how do we actually? Its question is how if someone says it was to say, hey, I want to do something at Great Western. What's the best way we can bring them in? And I'm just trying to brainstorm with you guys. What do you think is a good way to bring them in? What's a good way to bring people in? Is that best to go through the Facebook page? Best to go to talking to someone directly?
I apologize. I'm reading comments and doing including taking notes. So if what you're saying is if there is somebody that's already going and that wants,
they're going to Great Western, or they're going to West on Tier and saying, hey, I'd love to teach a class here. It would be great if we could make it available through the Coach's Corner. Is there a way we can do something like that we can say, hey, how do we get you to add a class that's not one of the ones that we're necessarily initially scheduling, but bring that into the entire framework?
I guess I would love to try something like that. But we would definitely have to set up, like we have to test the experience first, right? In other words, how do we tell them to hook up the StreamYard and start the class and run a class? And then we also have to make sure that we're capturing and getting all the information so it's posted into YouTube or pre-posted onto the Facebook page and all of those kinds of things. But I'd love to try to build that out. It's just we need to test, or maybe our test is somebody wants to do a class at one of those things, and we try to figure it out, right? So. I don't think that's. I don't think
try to contact you, Brannos, so they should put
they can
something on
totally
the Facebook
contact
page.
me. I'm more than happy to try to walk through stuff and try to get it working.
So Countess Alicia had a question here that I thought was pretty good. In maybe doing a pre-recorded question and answer type episode of Ask a Coach, where people can pre-submit questions, and it doesn't really matter what the context of the question is, but then we'd be able to have coaches answer some of those questions and be able to post that for people to be able to watch.
So actually, that's interesting. I kind of did a session. We didn't use too many of the questions that were previously posted, although we could do the posts as part of. There's probably two ways to do that. We could allow questions to come in via a submission form into email. We could allow it to come in via comment. And Boomy, actually, when we did his episode on PT, he actually there's a kind of a voice recording thing that is online where people can leave, a whole an audio question, and you can take that audio question, and then what he was doing is, took the audio question and then showed his exercises that he would do for that. It's a little hard sometimes because sometimes the question doesn't necessarily come in very clear. So you have to pre-look at those questions or pre-listen to the questions and make sure they're clear what the person's looking for. But it is definitely something we tried, and maybe we're trying again.
Yeah, I think the idea of pre-recording that may help, because then you have the opportunity to be able to check the recording and make sure that the content is going to be a good quality, to be able to sort of curate the questions that are going to be posted and made part of the episode. And so I think it is something worth looking into.
Okay. I
think also, sorry, one of the things that I think that's amazing is that when we actually do have people putting those questions on the Coaches Corner discussion group, one of the reasons why we haven't really had those episodes is we have so many people who actually have been jumping in and being given great answers that it's kind of redundant by the time it comes around to an episode when the person's already had that feedback live or engagement with another coach very well and done very well on the Facebook group. And so that's one of the things I really like about the Facebook group is it's expanded beyond just this show. It's a lot more of that engagement back and forth where people have been able to ask those questions and get answers in a very, it's been a very friendly, safe environment. Sorry, Barry.
People that are not officially coaches on the show are also participating in those discussions and throwing some great points out there.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you say that. I had said early on, I won't call out the other page, but there was a page that involved a lot of expert people that a lot of people were shying away from posting questions on there because you'd say, hey, what's your favorite combo? And the first 10 answers is, well, that's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is this. And I always felt like Coach's Corner had a very good environment of handling it. Like, oh, here's my favorite combo. And then maybe here's some additional information to make you understand when combos should be used and when they shouldn't use, rather than just sort of, making you feel stupid for asking the question. Anyway, I won't say what that other page is because I do like participating over there. But anyway, it's I had suggested in the past of having just an ask us anything sort of show, but we could even have something where it's sort of more targeted. I don't know if you need to get questions ahead of time. Maybe you do, but we get enough. I've just noticed that a lot of the content we get on here is just from people like Antigone and others that'll really participate in the streaming part, and we pull their questions in, and that kind of like spawns a discussion. So, I mean, there's some formats you can do there. I mean, you can be topical, like, all right, today we're talking about, you know, whatever. Why does everybody hate Madus? I think you guys did a show like that, but
We did do a show like that.
I know.
We did. I was actually on that show.
No, I know you guys did a show, but yeah, but whatever it is, you know, and you have like some sort of topic or some sort of focus, and then just, you know, make it clear that's going to be open to questions, you know.
I think Jaleisha just also made a good point, which is the repetition. We can go back to topics that we've done before and come back and see them with either new coaches or with different groups of people. We've talked about doing the Need for Speed episode and revisiting that, but instead of with Ronwalder, but in bringing in other people, other coaches who have different views on speed or have different ways of expressing. That's not necessarily different views, but different ways of expressing what speed is and how it affects. So I think that's probably a good idea to go back to some of those topics we did early on
And just pull different people in.
and pull different people or mix people up.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things with that is that with the coaches that were on the previous episodes, how have their perceptions of it changed since the episode aired to now? Have they changed how they approach things? And so that could be an interesting perspective as well.
If you don't mind, if I may, just on that topic, one of the things that we've seen is we see these 90-minute episodes that you've done, and they're amazing, and they have so much good information, but it typically is a small group of people giving feedback, or you're not able to really deep dive into some of that with them because of the episode length, or you get off topic sometimes. But I think kind of what I'm seeing in the chat and kind of has been suggested is taking like a question or an episode topic and go to different people who are very knowledgeable about that topic and maybe pre-record their responses to that question and then put that together as kind of like an episode or a video you post answering that question. That's not just bringing them on live. Maybe, you catch them at an event and you're able to record it. It would take some kind of thought process and planning long term, more than just like a week or two, but that would be really cool and helpful. And I know that a couple people in our in the Facebook have kind of suggested and asked for that.
I'm gonna put that down. All right, I'm gonna jump to something because this is we're covering a lot of content stuff. We're kind of getting towards the end of the show, and it actually went really fast. But I wanted to bring up if anybody has done, we have a number of people talking about crowns and stuff, and we're getting contact information so we can reach out to people that do the videos at some of the crowns and things like that. But if you've worked with some good remote speakers that you can pin on people that can take what we do. You're not fighting, but at least doing a lot of athletic work. We are definitely interested in knowing what those were. If you have good video devices that we can watch, even if it's, I guess, via our phone as a secondary resource, a lot of GoPros you connect to and you can see what's being done. But just beware again that look at what issues they have. Heat is one of the biggest issues I see in the industry right now. We'd love to know more about what would make our content better. If it's at home equipment too, go ahead and send us a list, because there's nothing wrong with us sharing that in our coaches lounge saying, hey guys, here's a list of microphones that people suggested so that we can be heard better and control things better. Here's a list of the best cameras out there that we could use. So people would be happy to probably upgrade when they're upgrading stuff. Instead of buying a cheaper mic, maybe they'll spend the extra $50 or $100 to buy a better mic, because they're doing this. So if you have suggestions on that, and we're going to come up with our suggestion link on our page really quick, and we'll post it up into the Facebook page. I'll work with Sadb on that so that you guys can, everybody can post like, hey, here's what I use and the reason why it's good or whatever. And then the last piece, that we also wanted to talk about was just, obviously we're not making money on Facebook or obviously, but or YouTube. How other, maybe you did some other fundraisers that, we got a couple of good ideas already. Some swag stuff. If you have any good, like, hey, I would buy this on a t-shirt, any good sayings that, we're not going to be copyrighted for, that kind of thing. I don't mind putting swag out there. If you do a bunch of, if you're a graphics person and you had some ideas for some graphics around Coach's Corner, send them to us. I would love to get some different graphic stuff going. We have 2 people that helped us with graphics over time. But, obviously it was just, relatively regarding episodes. We've never thought about shows or fun shirts or things like that. So, and I'd rather have somebody buy something in many cases than just donate money. But I guess, now in the modern world, there is also, there's sites that you could donate. And I apologize, everybody. I just don't know them because I don't do a lot of gaming. But there's sites you can just throw $1 at or whatever that is easy for people to do, and that is done more now on all the online ads, stuff like this that people do, chats and things like that. People throw money just to keep those shows going. I have really no clue, and there's probably more people on this show that have a clue than I do about any of that. So, does anybody throw money at online sites like this? And on our gear over on, I like Nate's comment, but we'll cover that in a minute. Throw if you donate to shows and things like that, and how you do it. Throw it in the comments as well, because I think it'd be nice if we do find good class equipment. I'd really like to try to do more classes, but we have to have the resources and better equipment.
And some of those things we might consider, when we go into Patreon or something like that, or a Ko-fi. There are a couple of different apps that allow people to do that. And so there's one comment from YouTube, which is that, I throw money at Patreon. So I know a bunch of people who will use Patreon, or a couple other choices. And I think that's we have to figure out which option we want to choose, or if we want to choose a bunch of them,
right?
Probably just one. But I think those are all great choices.
So I know that Patreon has you can have special content only available to the people that pay. So we have a whole episode on the shot that'll win crown, and then get to the end of the episode and it's only going to be given to people. The magic shot that everyone's been waiting for. The one that's unblockable.
We'll send you one of Barry's old socks, and you become a better spearman.
There you go. Stretchy pants.
So we do. There's actually a couple of suggestions I kind of like. It's called the flat snap. I like Sven's comment. He just ruined it. He lost all our money. Now nobody's going to pay for that.
You're not supposed to give away the secret.
Remember that shot you were
Can they pay to not get Barry's socks? I think, Barry, you're in the sock business, brother.
Nate mentioned armor gear as a fundraiser auction. I mean, that's some options as well. So
before we go too far, I think Sadb has actually generated a form while we've been talking, and she's put together a form here.
Louis has joined us. Hello.
And so we actually have a Coach's Corner suggestion box form that you are welcome to submit to. Let's see if I can actually. Sadb, do you want to paste that into the chat too, or in the comments, so we can actually have it available? But it has questions.
We'll post it up in the discussion group and everywhere we can think of. Still on Facebook for the moment. Sorry.
So, but this will allow you to both make suggestions for coaches you'd like to see, equipment that you think would work well for us, or that you've had good experience with, or content resources that you say, hey, we maybe with this person, or quite honestly, there's a general improvement question, or a resource creation question, or other. There's another one, which is just if you have another question or suggestion. So if you want to say, hey, I'd love to put
I tried to separate it out to sort of pre-sort some of the suggestions by like, is this an episode you want to see, or is this hey, I think the whole show could be improved if you did XYZ. But yeah, there's also a general suggestion comment box for if it doesn't fit into one of the pre-done categories, like let us know.
We could also vote coaches off the island.
No, I mean you can put it in the box, but
if you want to shut me up, send me $100.
Like you're
gonna
have to have
you better be careful in case you'll send
good
that.
reason.
The SCA Coaches Corner virtual dunk tank.
Oh boy.
Fundraiser.
There you go.
Brannos dunk
Fundraiser,
tank.
virtual dunk tank.
No. If we raise enough money, we get an actual dunk tank, and you can.
Yeah, we're set up right now.
Some graphics where you post the picture of people's heads, and then if you shoot at them, that their heads blow up. That would be a good fundraiser. 25 cents a shot.
I'm sure
Yeah,
with
we are
AI
kinda
and
set
deep
up.
fakes, we can make all that happen.
We are kind of set up right now like Hollywood Squares. We've got two more coaches
Exactly.
on
Yeah.
here. So we can have people ask questions, and then they pick a coach, they ask the question, you give the answer, and then they have to be like, okay, is that a good idea or a bad idea? And if they get the right way, then you get an X or an O, and we would like to check that.
SCA Coaches Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, that could happen.
I vote for Benin to be the Paul Lind character in that one.
Or
He'd be perfect for that.
So, real quick, because we're talking about income generation to kind of fund your show. All these are hilariously great. So one of the things that we've seen is you are not the first kind of group or show to need to generate some income or fundraise to be able to do what you do or improve it. And so we found that some things in fundraising generate more money quickly. Some things generate more money, but it's over time. And some things, for the effort you put in, just don't generate very much money. There's also passive income to be made by having like a swag shop or something like that, where it's print on demand. You don't make very much money. It's very, very minimal. But you at least have that available kind of, that also, people get to not just wear your stuff, but then see it everywhere. But it is print on demand. So the actual return on that is very small. So when you're thinking about like generating income, that's the thing also to think about is this really what level of income do we need to generate? And is this really going to be helpful or useful? Does it make sense to do just like a one-time fundraiser to get the team better cameras or certain equipment you need? Or does it make more sense to, just only do a passive or a recurring donation, essentially, which is like Patreon, or there's some other platforms that do recurring donation. I've done a lot of research in this recently for another project, so that's the only reason I know.
No, it's good. That's a kind of, again, this is a prime example of, why we like bringing other people on the show, right? I mean, they bring in things, as much as it's like, hey, I'm not, I'm not a Duke, so maybe I shouldn't be on the show or whatever. It's like you bring in a lot of other good stuff, including a fresher experience of where you're at. I can't tell you what an unbelt feels anymore. That was a long time ago, right? And so it's those types of experience I really want to hear from. So.
Yeah. So when you're talking about like income generation, I just mention it because, a lot of people haven't done a whole lot of research into it, or maybe haven't had to deal with it a whole lot. And so I personally feel really bad anytime a person or a group of individuals put a lot of effort into raising funds or something of that nature, and then it doesn't kind of pan out, or it was more work than it was really worth. Yep. Because in the end, for some of us, our time is kind of worth more than the money that we generate with that. Mm-hmm. So that's all. And I know there's some really great suggestions in the chat right now, and I'm sure you'll get some more through your awesome new forum site.
Hey, Brannos, I think Michael Peters answered your question to what does an unbelt feel? and it was pain, lots of pain.
I was wondering what that was in response to.
Oh man.
And somebody mentioned put all the videos on YouTube and monetize it. And all the videos are already on YouTube. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we're anywhere near the number of like followers and views that are required to monetize on YouTube.
So we have the followers. You need 4,000 hours. I believe it's 4,000 hours of viewing. And right now in a 365-day period or 1 year.
Is it like a rolling 1 year?
And right now we're at 3,100 watching hours.
So everyone get out and watch those old videos.
Yeah, turn your computer on.
Don't open a tab.
One video after the next video and go to your lawn.
Yeah, like if the viewership and interest keeps growing, then like maybe we cross that threshold and can do that. At the moment, we don't quite meet the threshold to monetize.
Right.
We have.
And by the way, I do know somebody that about a year and a half, 2 years ago, he was running a YouTube channel. He had 80,000 subscribers, and he was pulling in about, he's told me about 2,500, 3,000 a month. And and then YouTube changed its algorithm, and he was making like $110 a month. And they set up a criteria or a threshold. If he made less than 200 or 250 a month, they wouldn't even give him the limited amount. They'd hold that in an account until he hit a month where he was doing 250 a month, and then they would give him all the back pay. So he's like, suddenly he went from $2,500 a month on the videos he produced to nothing, and that was tough. And I mean, I know we don't have even 5 digits worth of subscribers on our YouTube channel. So his videos were shorter. They were in the 10 to 25 minute range each, but he was turning it out, and he said it was like a light switch got turned off, and it pretty much killed his channel.
Yeah.
So,
well, we could totally sell out on this and just have episodes where it's just people in armor getting hit in uncomfortable places and people laughing at them.
Somebody already brought that up, Barry. They said that if you post your feet on a special channel, that they'd pay for
my personally, I'll show you my feet right now.
Yeah, but see, now you're just teasing them.
I do like Countess Yulish's suggestion about reposting links to older shows, just because of
I like that one. I put that in.
Rate. Yeah.
Yep. There's my leg.
Oh, show a leg. There you go. That should be worth $5 right there.
I think we have to take Barry and throw him off the screen here.
Get the censor Barry.
Yeah, we'll have to censor. We'll have to cut that one out in review. Sorry,
we'll be removed in post.
Yeah. That's how I hitchhike. That's how I get rides.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. We're at about 90 minutes, and boy, we've covered quite a bit of ground. I really love watching the comments come in and the suggestions and the questions. One of the reasons we like these live shows so much, and we've talked about doing pre-recorded shows, is we like the input. We like the questions, the input from you, the listeners. We really enjoy that part. Did I just get cut off?
Nope,
you're
going.
Okay. It looked like everybody froze there. I'm like, uh-oh, more technical problem.
I was just laughing at somebody's comment.
Yeah. So I know the coaches, we've talked about this in previous meetings. We kind of really don't want to give that up, that live feedback part. It's not just about us doing videos, recording us with our own opinions and sending them up to you guys. Although I think that is a good idea to augment with shorter videos. I know we've talked about it. We haven't quite gotten around to it, but I want to thank you, the listeners who have voiced your opinions tonight and shared with us, and shared all the coaches here that came on. And I know there were a number that said they really wanted to be here, but could not for, whatever reason. That's kind of life, the way we're dealing with it now. But thank you everybody for coming. Is there any thoughts you'd like to wrap up with? Anybody? Feel free to get a little conclusion point or any final comments.
No, I'd like to thank Her Grace for coming and jumping on and I'm sure she was like, I can just type all this stuff, and now she had to jump on and get going. I'm going to personally reach out and we'll talk more. And the second piece is I know a lot of people working on their own kind of stuff, and it takes effort to do this. So I think everyone that has put the effort into doing this, thank everybody that's online that's made it work, put the effort in, because without the customer, without the customer base, without the viewer base, I don't think we'd be doing it. I mean, it just wouldn't be worth it, right? But we have gotten a lot of positive response. And for everybody, and it's been amazing to watch. And we've gotten, if you look at the people that not only watched our show, but many other shows during COVID, many of them been knighted by now, and because they were at least participating mentally, and they were doing stuff. Yeah, there Barry's pointing at himself right there.
Four on the screen right now.
Live, Sivrid, Guillaume, all those people, right? Yeah. So it really does make a difference. Thinking about the sport, understanding the sport, and feeling like we make a difference is the reason why we spend this time. And if you feel like you have something that you would like to make a difference, reach out. We can start putting, if people want to put their own show together under the SCA piece and say, hey, this is, whoever's show, I didn't care if it's, we had a lot of shows that went out that like 5 Methods, all these other shows that are no longer, but they were very good. And somebody wants to do that again, reach out. If you want to build a show any other night and do your thing, we're happy to go ahead and dump it and give you the tools to work with it.
It's like Louis just dropped in the comments suggestion about doing episodes on, say it. No, right here.
I think that myself.
We could do some episodes on some content that is not directly related, like not a focus about our SCA stuff. So it could be just ways to create ideas with training and how to take from something and add it to something else to create a new way of looking at how to do the problem of training and getting over plateaus and things like that.
Which
Louis' post actually gave me the idea for an episode of how to connect to a student.
Right.
How a mentor connects to a student, and that goes beyond the medium of fighting or competing.
Right.
Yeah. And when y'all started Coach's Corner, sort of the primary thrust was not necessarily about fighting techniques at all. It was about
teaching.
how to teach and train better. And so Louis' suggestion is getting right back at the heart of that. So
great idea.
Certainly worth digging back into those topics.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone that came out, and had a great show. Really, I enjoyed laughing with everyone and getting this time. We actually have a show scheduled for next week, but I still have to put it together. But if people know and know somebody you'd like to talk about this topic, we're talking about doing Beth wanted to do a show on tension and energy and analysis, specifically regarding, it kind of came out of a couple of the heroic fights and what people are seeing that other people aren't seeing, like this tension and energy and how they're analyzing the fight that's occurring. And Bess really wanted to know more, so she understood what to look for. And so she asked me and Rongalder to do that. I have to get with Rongalder yet. This show is scheduled for the 2nd. I'd love to have some other coaches. So if you have some ideas, I have been reaching out to a few other people that have asked to see get a couple more interviews with some people. And I'm trying to reach out to them to get some interviews set up. But please, we have a new form, fill it in, or you can ping me or message me on Facebook under Brannos anytime, and we're happy to hear from you. And again, you can actually message pretty much any of our coaches, and we talk all the time. So,
and in 2 weeks we have Melee with Atlanteans.
Yes.
Yes.
On the 9th, yeah, October 9th.
All right. Otherwise,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks for a great conversation and all the notes. We will try to do some of these as best we can. We're only a small group of people, so it's going to be it's work to get each one of these changes kind of going. So,
and if you want to help out, volunteer.
Yeah, and
Let
we
us
are
know.
listening.
I'm going to try and make another form specifically for if you want to volunteer for something with Coach's Corner, let us know. I'm going to make that a separate one.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Sadb. That was great. That form, coming up with the form on the fly. Fantastic.
I know how you like that.
Google Forms
Love
are
it.
real easy. I got you.
Nice.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.